Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another video. Now today I've got two things for you. One, we're going to be making tier lists leading up to Worlds. It's Worlds patch next patch. We're going to be doing patch 14.17 today. And then we'll do another video on the lead up to Worlds where I move things around and we'll see what changes with the 14.18 patch, which will be coming out sometime next week or in 2 weeks or something like that. So yeah, we'll see what changes. I think it's next week. Now, you'll also notice that I'm in an app that you may not have seen before. The developers of this app, it's called ProComps, have reached out to me and asked me to make some content around it. And I went into a meeting with them and I told them that I will record myself using the app and I will be completely 100% honest. So everything you see in any of these videos is exactly what I think about this app. And that's the situation. But one of the great features of this app, it's a drafting app, so expect more content of me using this shortly, is that you get to make your own tier list and you can then use that in the draft stuff. So it can like weight different champions highly. So let's take a look. Moving into top lane, starting out with Aatrox. I think Aatrox is like good. You know, let me define the tiers. I think B is going to be like okay. C is bad, D is horrible, A is good, and S is amazing, right? So it's like neutral in the middle, and then pretty good, pretty bad, really bad. Okay. Aatrox is good. So I think he's higher than B. Also, this tier list is for pro play. It's for Worlds. It's aimed at pro play, competitive play, you know, minor leagues, stuff like that. So we're assuming mechanical proficiency, and we're assuming good coordination. Okay, so yeah, Aatrox is good. His matchups across the board are reasonable. His scaling is fine. What he brings to a comp is the same as what it's always been. I do think lethality is slightly better than Bruiser, but he does have both options. I think Bruiser, when you need more of a front line, Bruiser is fine, but most games you should be going lethality, and I think Aatrox is good. Akali I don't think is good. Akali is like a really niche counterpick into Gwen, who is not being played right now. Maybe some other lanes that I can't remember off the top of my head. I do think she's got quite a good matchup into Fiora, but again, nobody's playing Fiora. So yeah, I don't think Akali top is that great of a thing. I do think she's better in mid. Akali top, not the best. Akshan. Akshan is fine. Akshan is just okay. If you want to play Akshan, go for it. There's decent like AD carry and crit items across the board. His itemization's quite good, but he's nothing special compared to some of the other range tops that we might see. Moving on. Anivia, Annie, Aurora. Okay, I think Aurora is still pretty good. I don't think she was S tier when she came out. The hotfix nerfs have put her in A tier. She's still very good. In the correct spots, she's incredible. If you can coordinate fights around her ult with the other champions on your team, I think she's really good in pro play, and she wins a lot of lanes really hard. So I do think Aurora is quite good. Okay, Azir top. This is something that I've been quite big on for quite a while. Azir top is okay at the minute. The thing is, with what they're doing next patch, or what it looks like, I honestly think Azir top is going to move to D tier. But for now it's in B tier on 14.17. But in 14.18, I think it's going to move to B tier. If you haven't seen, they're just completely gutting his W damage. It's insane how much damage they're taking away. I've never seen people take away so much damage from a champ. Okay, Briar, this champ is D tier, complete trash. Very bad in coordinated play. Very bad against good competent players. She's like a low elo stomper. Also not a lot of room for skill expression on the champ, and yeah, just very bad in pro play in general. Camille is very much like Aatrox for me. You pick them in different spots, but I think they're very similar power levels. They're both good. They're just like really good picks. I don't think they're incredible or anything, but I do think they're both good. Cassiopeia. I do think Cassiopeia in top lane is actually quite good. Especially given the fact that she's a flex into mid. Do I think she's better than Azir and Akshan? Yes, I do, so she'll go in A tier. Cho'Gath. Ever since Cho'Gath lost Everfrost, I think this champ got a lot worse. I would have had him in C. I'm debating moving him into B with this new Triforce build, but honestly, I'm not completely sold on it, so he's going to stay in C. Darius occupies this slot in the game, especially with Ivern so high in prio as well. You'll see that when we move into jungle. Darius occupies this slot in the game where if you draft things that run into him, and if you draft a lot of top laners that we have been seeing, like we've seen a lot of Cassante, a lot of Ornn, stuff like that, like tanky tops, if Udyr makes a reappearance, Darius is just really good as an answer. Like, this guy occupies such a nice slot, and Ivern being in the meta is so much better for him as well, because Ivern Darius is crazy good. Gives Darius extra mobility, also just lets him face tank so much while he's running through your team. Darius is pretty bad. Pretty good. On the other hand, what is pretty bad, I think, is Dr. Mundo. This champ is really fake. This champ can only exist in the West because the Western top laners are not good enough to exploit it. If Broken Blade tries playing Mundo against Zeus or 369 or Keen or Bin, any of these top laners, like Breathe, he will get absolutely murdered, to the point that, like, people say, oh, you can just farm with Q. You can't. They'll just take second wind, they'll take Doran Shield, and they'll stand in the queue whenever you try to last hit a melee or a cannon. The champ is unplayable into really, really proficient top laners. Now, if the enemy blind picks something that he can be played into, for example, his Gangplank matchup isn't bad. Gangplank doesn't have a great deal of kill pressure on him. He has some other good matchups, right? No one's going to blind pick Malphite, but it could be picked there. Stuff like that, right? If that happens, you can bring out Mundo as a counter pick, and that's why he makes it out of D tier. But I do think on the whole, he's very, very bad. Draven, Corky Top. Do I talk about Corky Top? Yeah, Corky Top can also go in C. It's good in some spots, like as a cannon counter pick. It's mostly used to get a good matchup, though, for your mid laner, but it's playable, so it has to at least go in C. We've just seen some flexes where Corky ends up going top. Okay, Brand, no. Diana, no. Draven, Echo, Elise, Fiddle, no, this thing's way too niche. Like, I do think there's, into Rumble, there can be a case for Fiddle. It's literally just a Rumble counter, though. So yeah, Fiora. Fiora's not good. Like, Fiora's just not in a good spot compared to where she has been. There's not a lot of people playing tanks aside from Cassante, really. Her Cassante matchup isn't even that good. Like, as far as other tank matchups go, it's not the best. And also, you just don't want to play the style of game that Fiora wants to play. You can't just, like, leave your guy in a side lane and let him split push the whole game in pro play. It doesn't work anymore. There's Dragon Souls and there's Barons and stuff. It's just not the same as it used to be. Also, like, general macro level is better as well. People won't just let you do that. Galio. Full tank Galio top, I think, is playable, and I think it's okay. It's a good flex. It's playable. It doesn't really lose too hard to too many things. I do think Galio is a better champion in... no, maybe he's like kind of... Yeah, maybe he's slightly better in mid. Maybe I put him in A tier in mid. We'll see when we get there. But yeah, I think Galio B, solid. GP. GP, I think... Oh, it's hard. I think GP has some... Right. What used to be the case with GP is that he would sit at B, and then in some drafts he would be S. Okay? There was one point in the game where GP was just S regardless. That was the Essence or even Navori Prowler's Claw, where the Prowler's Claw had the dash. At that point, Gangplank was literally the best champion in the game, in my opinion. Or, like, one of. Nowadays, I think Gangplank sits more at, like, C, and then has some A games. So I think I'll put him in B overall. The difficulty with Gangplank is finding winning matchups. Like, the Gnar matchup is okay. The Renekton matchup is good. The Cassante matchup's pretty decent. Aside from that, he's a great Shen counter pick. But yeah, he's just not... The meta doesn't suit him. His itemization got a lot worse with Season 14. They had to give him a bunch of compensation buffs, but he's still nowhere near back where he was. So Gangplank is just okay, I think. Next, that brings us into Garen. Now, people are overreacting to Garen. I do think Garen is worse than Darius, for sure. Do I think he's worse than these four? Probably not. I think Garen is probably B tier. He's okay. He has some draft spots where he's really good, like... honestly, I don't even think he's that good into Nasus, but people are picking him into Nasus because it's winning. It is winning into Nasus, just not as hard as people think. I think people watched Chovy play Garen into Nasus, and then went, holy shit, it's insanely winning. No, it's just Chovy. Like, that's going to happen. Okay, Gnar. Gnar is very much same power level as Aatrox and Camille. You pick these champs in different spots, but I think they're all very much the same power. They're just, like, they're above average, just good. Do you know what I mean? Like, a lot of the time, they're just good. Gnar has some really nice spots where he's really, really good. And he has some spots where he's not so good either, but I do think he's good overall. Joining them, I think Gragas. This champion is criminally underplayed. Very, very good build flexibility. Very good thematic flexibility. The issue with Gragas at the minute, which hasn't traditionally been the case, is his role flexibility. His jungle's not very good, his mid lane's not very good, and his support is really, really niche. So the reason we're seeing less Gragas is because of his other roles, not top, but I do think he's still very good in top lane specifically. Next up, we have Gwen. For Gwen, I will put her in... It's a tricky one. It's like between B and A. I think she maybe goes into... Oh, this is difficult. I think she goes into A. The reason I think she goes into A, you'll see into jungle, is that I think Gwen jungle is actually really powerful. So that'll bump her out of B. Individually, I think she's probably more top of B, but I'll put her into bottom of A because of Gwen jungle. This champ, she's not as powerful as she used to be. The itemization isn't quite as good for her as it used to be. Nashus is a weaker version of what it was. Riftmaker is a weaker version of what it was when it was a mythic. Compared to when Gwen was really, really good, she's a lot weaker. She's also had a couple of nerfs across the years as well to get to the point she is right now. So yeah, I do think she can come in as a counter pick though, and she can be really good in the right spots. She's kind of like Darius, but I don't think her highs are as high, and I think her lows are lower. So she's definitely not, but she's more flexible, right? Gwen jungle is a lot better than like Darius jungle or something. Heimerdinger top, I don't know. Like maybe in like a really specific game, it could be very, very good. But I would say on the whole, like a D. C, I guess. C, because in the really specific game, it can be incredible. But it has to be like such a niche game. Illaoi, B. She's solid. Standalone. There's comps where she can't play at all. There's comps where she's the best champ in the game. Average it out, I think she ends up in B. Like her individual power is at a B level. Draft wise, sometimes she's completely fucking useless and she'd be D. Sometimes she's the best champ in the game, she'd be S. Average it out, she ends up in B. Let's see. Irelia, I'm putting her C. She's better than she used to be, but the spots to pick her are really, really few and far between. She's kind of just a counter pick to Aatrox and Gnar and Kennen. Aside from that, I don't think I would ever actually pick Irelia, and the difficulty is, even in those matchups, she's extremely susceptible to losing jungle. She's also extremely weak early game, to the point that you can kind of overcome the counter pickers like Gnar and Kennen by bullying her off of the wave at level 1, just not letting her approach the wave and then denying her XP. Her lane is so much weaker than it used to be, and she doesn't like the long lane where she can be kept away from the minion wave, like pushed out. So she's much better in mid lane than she is in top lane. I think C tier overall. Jarvan, no. Jax is B tier. This is a champion that I think is going to rise to A tier when he gets buffed in 14-18. Similar to Gwen, he can flex into jungle, but Jax jungle is not as good as Gwen jungle, and I think Jax and Gwen individually are on a similar power level. They're not as good as like Aatrox, Camille, Darius, Gnar, Gragas, Aurora, etc. But Gwen has really, really good jungle, so I do take into account flexibility somewhat when I make these tier lists. It's not the be-all and end-all, but I do take it into account. Jace. I think Jace is a B-tier champion. Mid lane flex. He's not the best he's ever been. He's not the worst he's ever been. He's just decent overall. Itemization's fine for him. Sometimes he can be really, really good if the enemy has really low engage, and then you just play Jace. But overall, I think he sits in B. Kalista. Okay, Kalista I'm putting in C for her nicheness, but there are some matchups where Kalista top absolutely murders it. We saw Keen play it, and the other thing is that Skarner jungle is coming back, and I have never seen anyone in pro play Kalista top Skarner jungle, but it is fucking disgusting. You strong side the Kalista with your Skarner, you give her all the resources, you let her murder the enemy top. going into team fights, your Skarner flashes in and ults them, and you Callista ult and pull them into your team, and you just wipe the floor with them. It's a really, really nasty combo, but it's very niche, so C tier. Needs to be the right draft, it needs to have Skarner, and it needs to be the right matchup. Very, very niche, but it can be good. Karma top. I think Karma top sits at like a B tier. This is mostly for flexibility. Again, this is like quite a weak solo lane version of Karma. Very, very good support version of Karma at the moment, I think, though. But her flexibility leads her higher up the table than ordinary. I think in individual power, she's more of a C, bump her up to B because of flexibility. In the past, she's been an A because she's been individually powerful too. But right now, I don't think she is that individually powerful. Kayle next. Kayle has to go in C. Again, she's way too niche, and she suffers from the same thing as Aurelia, where she's just better in mid. The shorter lane where she can't be zoned off the wave as easily is just better for her. So yeah, very, very similar thing to Aurelia here. And she ends up in C tier next to her. Kennen. I think Kennen goes in B tier. For some reason, this champ is being B1'd. He's not that good. There are drafts when he can be good. There are matchups when he can be good. But overall, I don't think he's that good. I think the Exhaust summon spell counters him on its own. There are so many champs he can't play into. Tristana, Alistar, Poppy, Lee Sin. Any of these champs, you just knock him out of the fight when he ults. It's really fucking annoying, which means he has to build Zhonya's, which means his damage gets cut in half. And it's just... Yeah, Kennen's a really, really difficult one to execute. And yeah, not great overall. Kled. I think Kled goes in B as well. Kled has this really nice ability in draft to come in on R5 and pivot whatever comp you have into an engaged comp, because he gives your entire team like 100% move speed towards enemy champions. That's really nice. The main thing is he has really one-dimensional lane matchups. So let's say the enemy's playing Olaf top, you pick Kled. Wonderful, great Kled game. But if the enemy's playing something like Poppy top, your Kled's going to hate his life. So swings and roundabouts. Overall, I think the champ ends up in B. There's some really nice spots for him. There's some really bad spots for him. Kind of similar to Illaoi, I think. Although I think they are swapped around in when they're really good. Kind of. Okay. Kindred. Cassante. Cassante goes in A. This champion has been S, but this is a weaker version of Cassante than we saw. This champion has been the most broken thing I've ever seen, but never in pro play. There was a patch when Worlds was on, the live patch that was not being played at Worlds, Cassante was so unbelievably broken, but then they nerfed him before season 2024 started. So we never got to see that version of Cassante. Even so, he was S tier. He's been nerfed. He's now A tier. Yeah, I think Cassante is a very, very good champion, just not quite strong enough to get into S. And also, you'll notice throughout this tier list that I'm very cautious with ever putting things in S or D. I think it has to be really bad to go in D. I think it has to be really good to go in S. Okay, Lee Sin top, I do think is fringe playable with Ravenous Hydra. W, you do like 3 points Q or 3 points E into 5 points W. There's some great matchups for it. I think you can flex your Lee Sin out of jungle into that. It's okay. Lilia top, I think Lilia top is very similar. You can flex it into top into tank matchups, and it can take over, but it's pretty niche. Very niche, honestly. Needs the right draft, needs the right matchup. And you'll see that if things are really, really niche, I'm putting them down in C a lot of the time. Even though a lot of these champions, for example, Aurelia, if you've seen the UDKI summer in Group A, maybe, actually, I think it was in the first draft of the entire tournament of UDKI. There was an Aurelia R5, and it was an absolutely perfect, incredible Aurelia spot. And in that spot, she can be amazing. But most of the time, she's bad, right? So a lot of these niche champions, when they're in their niche, they're really good. It's just their niches are so niche that it's kind of hard to ever find a way to pick them. While I'm talking about that, it looks like the next one is going to be Malphite. Malphite, very, very similar, right? He's very, very niche. In his niche, he's incredible, but it's hard to ever actually draft into his niche. Have I missed anyone? No, doesn't look like it. Okay, Lissandra. I don't think you should play Lissandra top, but you can. But it's pretty bad. But kind of similar to the Corki thing. If you can get your mid lane a really good matchup by putting your Lissandra top, that's fine. Lulu top is also similar. There's the on-hit Lulu top. It's okay. Yeah, it's just okay. Lucian top also. It's okay. In the right matchup, it can be good. but there's not too many of them. Maokai top, I think, is also like a little bit weak. But again, you could flex it to give your jungle a better matchup, or pick like the best jungle in the game in that spot. A lot of these times you'll see, you know, things that just about can go into C. Okay, Mordekaiser. I think this is the best Mordekaiser has ever been. Ever since Season 9. Season 9 was the last time Mordekaiser was actually better than he is right now. He's had a few buffs. His itemization's good. The new Cosmic Drive is amazing for him. The new Rocket Belt gives him access to targets he wouldn't have before because he can buy it, and it's a 400 health item now. It's actually pretty good on him. Rylai's is still a really good item. There's the Liandry Riftmaker with double Haunting Guys thing going for Mordekaiser. Obviously, he needs to be in the right draft, but it's a really nice meta for Mordekaiser. He's still not like amazing or anything, but it's the best he's been since Season 9, I think. Neferi goes in C. Does Neferi even go in C? Yeah, I think she does. I think she's better than Briar, so she's not good though. Nasus currently is A. Nasus is A right now. A lot of the AD carries being played, except for Ezreal, are really weak to Nasus. There's solo lane AD carries. He's a mid lane flex. His top lane matchups are really good. Aside from Aatrox, that's the only losing matchup I see here. Yep. The only hard losing matchup here is Aatrox in A tier so far. Nasus is in a really good spot. The problem is Nasus is going here in 14-18. They are absolutely gutting this champion, and I will make a video about that shortly. But Nasus is A. Really, really good Nasus time at the minute. Nautilus top is very similar to Maokai. It's playable, so I put it in C just because of that. Let's see. Nico top. Honestly, just don't. Like, the itemization's not there for her anymore. It used to be. But yeah, like for an on-hit version, you know, it's just not there anymore. With like nerfs that have come into Blade of the Ruin King, nerfs that have come into Ranged Kraken Slayer. Nash's isn't the item it used to be. Rage Blade is completely different. Not really the items there. Nidalee top, C. This is the Triforce Nidalee that you see. Sometimes I do think she can scale a little bit better by picking up an Echoes of Helia, and she can transition more into like an enchanter. She kind of does this in jungle anyway, right? She builds AP and then she ends up being more like an enchanter towards the later stages of the game when she stops being so oppressive. You can do that in top lane too by going like Trinity into maybe another tank or DPS or like bruiser item into Echoes of Helia, and then when you group, you start pumping out heals with your maxed E and your Helia procs. Can be okay. Nocturne top I think is B. This champion is a really good flex that is underutilized. He has good itemization right now. There's a lot going for Nocturne top. He's not as powerful as these champions, but I do think he's good. He's okay, right? Let's see. Olaf top. Olaf I'm putting in the Illaoi tier because he's very similar to Illaoi and also Kled. In the right game, he can be an absolute demon. In the wrong game, he can be completely useless. And his standalone power is very balanced. So I think B is a very, very fair place to put Olaf. Ornn, A tier. This champion is criminally underpicked. It's flexible into mid in the right matchup. It's playable bot with Senna as well. It can jungle, though it's not good at it. It's okay at it, but it's not amazing at it. But very flexible, can fit into most drafts, blindable. Yeah, Ornn's just solid. People are underrating this champion right now. He kind of fell off a little bit when K'Sante came in. People started defaulting to him as their tank pick rather than Ornn, and I think that's fine. K'Sante was broken, but now K'Sante's less broken, and Ornn can start poking his head back in. Okay, Orianna, Pantheon. Pantheon, I think, goes in C. Again, very, very niche spots for Pantheon, with like Talia jungle, or, you know, stuff like that. Maybe Nidalee jungle, Pantheon could come in and play kind of like a Nidalee Renekton. You need the right matchup as well. Very niche, but can be good. Poppy, flex pick, really strong in lane. Really good into a lot of the things that are already here, right? She's good into Aatrox, she's good into Camille, she's good into Gragas, she's good into K'Sante. She's actually good in lane into Gwen, though gets outscaled. I think Poppy's really solid. Again, Poppy top is kind of slept on. Okay. Let's see what else we've got. Quinn. Quinn, I think, goes in C. She's literally just a Renekton counter. Other range tops are just better. That's kind of all I have to say on the matter. Renekton. I think Renekton goes in A. He's very similar to Aatrox, Camille, Gnar level. The four of them, I think, are like the I think Aatrox, Gnar, and Renekton are like the holy trinity of just I need to blind my top here and not lose too much, and just generally be somewhat useful in every draft. I think Renekton goes there. Individually, he's more powerful than he's been in the past. I have been a long time Renekton hater, but I do think this Eclipse Cleaver Sterax build with W max, and now the ratio that he has on his ult, which was added a while back, he does actually scale fairly well into the game compared to what he used to do. And Renekton's actually pretty good. He wins a lot of matchups really handily as well. For example, he wins Aatrox, he wins Camille, he wins Darius, he wins Gwen, he wins Cassante, he wins Nasus, he wins Ornn. Ornn outscales, of course, but yeah, he's just really solid. Let's see. Ramus, Rek'Sai, Rengar. I'm going to put Rengar in C for nicheness because of Ivern being so prominent. If you can get a really good matchup and the enemy doesn't have much DPS, they have burst, and you're playing Ivern jungle, then Rengar is a really, really good top lane pick. Outside of that, I wouldn't pick Rengar top, but there are definitely spots for him. Riven. I think Riven comes in as a counter pick to Aatrox and Camille in a draft where you want hard engage, and she already has set up. So think like a Riven Orianna, or you have Riven Diana, Riven Rel is really nice. If you have that and you want to go in, and you're playing against Aatrox and Camille, then, or also Gwen, then Riven can be really good in these spots. Riven can also be completely shit though, and also really, really high burden of execution. Rumble, A tier for now. He's getting nerfed really, really hard next patch, so he's another one that's going to drop. But for now, sitting in A tier, just really good in lane. Works really nicely with like Ashe comps, Jarvan comps, Varus comps, things like this, Sejuani comps. Just really nice champ. He's also a really good support flex as well, with like Ashe, Jhin, Varus lanes. So yeah, still very high on Rumble. Not S tier anymore after the nerfs that he did receive. And you'll see that we've not actually got any S tier champions yet, and I think that's just the way top lane is. The champions themselves aren't actually that strong in the current point in time. There's been a lot of nerfs over and over and over. For example, Aatrox was nerfed. Camille was nerfed. Gragas was nerfed. Cassante was nerfed. Nasus is getting nerfed. Rumble's been nerfed. GP was nerfed a long time ago indirectly by items. Jax was nerfed a while back. Kennen's been nerfed. You know, like, there's been a lot of nerfs to the best champions. Not many buffs. Not many buffs at all in top lane. We are getting some. We're getting this Jax buff, which is going to move him up, obviously. But yeah, not too many buffs in top lane. And that's kind of put us in this place. Neelan, Nunu, Ramus, Rek'Sai, where are we? Rise. Rise, I think, goes in B. Maybe C. No, I think B. Just because he has a really, really good lane phase into a lot of champs. So, not Aatrox, but Aurora, he's solid. Camille, not so much. Cassiopeia, he's solid. No, maybe not, actually. Maybe he's not into Cassiopeia. But he's really good into Darius. He's really good into Gnar. He's okay into Gragas. He's okay into Gwen. He's really good into Cassante. Really good into Nasus. Fine into Ornn. Good into Poppy. Good into Renekton. And amazing into Rumble. Like, the reason Keen picks Rise top is as a Rumble counter pick. But also, if you need magic damage in your top laner, go Rise, right? If the enemy's running at you and you need magic, kind of in similar Gwen spots, he can function as a worse Gwen, but he's also Rise. He brings Rise ult. He has, like, matchup, like, for example, Gwen can't be picked into Rumble. Let's say you needed Gwen and the enemy's playing Rumble. You would pick Rise. That's a Rise spot. I think he's less niche than these other niche champions, so I'm going to put him in B. Rise. Sejuani. Sejuani top is better than people think. I do think you can flex your Sejuani into top fairly easily. You can build Liandry's on it if you need. You can build full tank if you need. The laning phase is strong. The scaling's fine. It's not as good as something like an Ornn, but I do think it's pretty good. Set. Set for me actually goes in B. I think if you need a physical damage disengage themed top, you look for Cassante. If you can't find Cassante, you start looking at Set Darius Ilaoi, depending on what the game is. If the enemy's playing like a tank top as well, and you can play Set, really nice. If there's one specific target you need to remove from a fight, Set again, really nice. Kind of does fill a similar role to Cassante, but ever since they added Overlord's Bloodmail as well, Set W is a really, really nasty spell that you need to watch out for. I think I would have had Set in B before Overlord's Bloodmail. Overlord's Bloodmail brings him up to... in C, sorry. Overlord's Bloodmail brings him up to a B. Shen, I think, is a C. His individual power is fairly low right now compared to what it has been in the past. There are niche spots for Shen. You can do like Hecarim Shen games and things like that. But you need the right matchup as well. One where you can get away with playing in top lane so little. Yeah, not ideal. Singed, I think Singed... Honestly, I'm debating D, but I think C, just because sometimes his W is such an OP spell in a game that maybe you could pick Singed if you have the right matchup for it. And, you know, his W ends up being a really, really nice spell that helps you out. But I don't think I would pick Singed. Shyvana. I genuinely think Shyvana top is D tier. Everyone that saw... there was a LOL Dobby video or something where they were talking about Shyvana top in Korean Challenger. That was the biggest bait I've ever seen. This shit is so bad. Just don't play it. Like, it can't lane. It's honestly, like, I think it might even lose lane to Mundo. Not literally, but, like, it's so weak in lane. So weak. Okay, Sion. Sion's C tier. He's an okay frontline tank. He feels very similar in lane to something like Maokai or Nautilus. He's not even, like, niche. He's not in C because of nicheness. He's just in C because of, like, being undertuned. So a lot of these other champs around him are in C because they're niche. He's in C because he's undertuned. Skarner, I think, is better than people are giving him credit for. Ever since they buffed his base numbers back up a few times, he's a lot better now. Magic damage, physical damage, percent damage. Very, very nicely rounded damage profile. Very tanky. Good into comps that want to run into you. Has some nice combos like Skarner Thresh. Solid B tier champion for me. Smolder. I think Smolder goes in A tier. This champ is completely disgusting. There are so many matchups. If we look across the board, Aatrox is playable. Aurora's not. Camille's playable. Cassio is probably playable. I've never played it. Darius is really easy. Gnar is okay. Gragas is playable. Gwen is completely fine. Cassante is literally free stack. Nasus is free stack. Ornn is free stack. Poppy is pretty free stack. Renekton is completely free stack. Rumble is really hard, to be fair. But like Garen, if people are playing that for some reason, is free stack. Smolder top can come in a lot of angles. He's already being picked a lot in mid and bot, so there's the flexibility there as well. This champ is really, really powerful. Start thinking about Smolder top. Swain top. If the enemy needs to run into you, like it's the Gwen angle, okay? And the enemy's playing a top that you can stack your passive on. And you want a range top, like it's a good matchup for Swain. And you can't pick Gwen. Then you could pick Swain. But it's so niche that, like, you would just go Gwen. Or you would go Ryze. Maybe if both of those are taken away, you could go Swain. Swain's not what he used to be. The itemization's not great for him compared to previous iterations. Yeah, not a big fan of Swain at the minute. Let's see. Okay, Silas, literally Malphite counter. I guess he should be on the list just because of that. Tahm Kench, really, really niche spots where you want Tahm Kench and then they pick a support that can't play into it and then you just put the Tahm Kench top. He's okay into a lot of things. He's not really great into many things. Teemo, don't pick Teemo. Thresh. Tristana. I think Tristana can go top. It's very similar to Corki, actually. Very, very similar to Corki. There are some matchups like Kennen, where it's a really good counter for Tristana, but aside from that, you're probably not putting your Tristana top. But like Kennen, Gangplank, Illaoi, if you're playing against any of this, you just put your Trist top and you're happy. Trundle, again, some niche counter picks, really good into champs like Sejuani, really good into Ornn, Malphite, these sort of things where he can steal a lot of resistances. His pillar has some pretty niche use cases, which can be quite nice. But yeah, C tier. Similar for Tryndamere. I think Tryndamere is just not individually powerful enough to do his job of being a really annoying, like lane-winning, side-laning, unkillable demon. There have been really, really strong iterations of Tryndamere, and this is not one of them, unfortunately, for Tryndamere. So he goes in C on essentially numbers alone. Twisted Fate, I think, is A tier. It's not as broken as it used to be with the really, really strong versions of Kraken and Shiv, but even with the nerfed versions of Kraken and Shiv, it's still good. It still wins lane into a lot of things. It's very flexible. It can go mid, it can go top, and also the utility that you get by having Twisted Fate is crazy. It can lane swap, it can weak side, it can strong side, it can play with a lot of junglers really well. I honestly think this champ brings what you want from a top laner. And by nerfing him and nerfing his items, they're trying to get him out of top lane, but I think he will still be there. Udyr. Udyr, I think, honestly might go in A. Flexible into jungle, has some really nice matchups. For example, if we look across the board, right, I think he's good into Camille in lane. I think he's not good into Darius. Actually, the matchups in top aren't great for him, but like Cassandra is really good, Ornn's really good, Poppy's good, Renekton's good. Rumble, he is such a good Rumble counter, like an amazing Rumble counter. But yeah, I think he's very blindable. He's excellent in lane swaps, like genuinely phenomenal in lane swaps. Impact plays him a lot. I think Impact is the best lane swapping top laner in the world. Impact plays him a lot. He's really good in lane swaps. And then obviously he's flexible into jungle, and I do think he's very powerful in the jungle. Yeah, kind of underplayed champ for me. One of my pocket picks. I like him a lot. Urgot goes in B. Not the strongest version of Urgot we've seen, but with Black Cleaver, Sterax, that sort of build, he's pretty solid. You can pick him in similar spots to Set, but you can also combo his ult with a lot of things. Yeah, Urgot has some nice spots. Again, really good into a lot of these tank matchups that we see. He's really good into like Cassandra. He's pretty good into like other tanks. Renekton he's pretty good into. And he scales really well. So yeah, that's Urgot. Varus is the first S tier champion. Since they buffed this champion, I already thought he was S tier, and now he just transcends. They buffed him again when I already thought he was broken in top lane. There's a few builds going that you can play. I think the best is Terminus Rush with Zerka Greaves into 2 Haunting Geysers, and then you do Riftmaker and Spear of Shojin. But like, it's really tanky, insane damage, insane DPS, burst. His lane phase is like best in the game. There's only really Yasuo that actually beats him in lane. Yeah, Varus top is completely crazy. Abuse it while you can because it's getting nerfed in 14-18. Vayne top, I think, is C for like niche. Sometimes it can come in and it can bully. Actually, no, maybe Vayne's B. I think Vayne has more spots than a lot of these other niche champs. For example, Vayne into Aatrox, Darius, Gnar, Cassandra, Ornn, Poppy, Renekton, Udyr, Galio, Garen, Illaoi. A lot of these are Mordekaiser, Olaf, Set, Skarner. Yeah, no, there's actually Urgot as well. There's a lot of matchups where Vayne can come in on R5 and be really, really good. So I'll put her in B instead of C because of that. Where are we? V. Vex. No. No, don't play Victor top. It's not good. Vladimir. I'm playing Vladimir in A tier. This champion with W max is completely disgusting. You basically get a free lane phase into every champion in the game, and then you come online and you become a monster. He's a better version of Ryze right now. He does what Ryze does, but he does it better. And he deserves to be an A tier. He's like maybe even borderline S. This W max thing is so broken. Okay, Volibear. I think Volibear is... I think he's B tier. With his Roa and Navori build, in the right spots, he can be really good. Overall, he's pretty solid. Individual power-wise, I think he goes B tier. Warwick top, don't pick it in Pro. It's really bad. It's literally a cheese pick. If you don't cheese, you lose. If you get to level 9 without losing the game to Warwick top, it's just over for him. Wukong top, I think, is better than people give it credit for. I think it's probably C. I think it's very similar to Riven. You want the right matchup, and you want to play all in, and you want setup like an Orianna or a Rel or a something like that. Similar spots to Riven, and then depending on obviously matchup, you pick it when you actually want a Wukong in top. Let's see what else there is. Yasuo I think is B tier. There's some really nice matchups for him, like Aatrox is really nice, Aurora's really nice. Gnar is decent for him. So yeah, there's some like Smolder, Twisted Fate, Varus as well. I think Yasuo has some really good angles, but overall, on his own, he's not great in top lane, but Windwall has incredible value at the moment. Actually, maybe I'll put him in A. Windwall has incredible value, he has good matchups. Navori is his second item after Blade of the Ruin King, and then he goes IE third. By having Navori, you end up with like a 4-second cooldown Windwall, which is really, really powerful. So yeah, Yasuo's a lot stronger than he used to be. Yeah, I'm liking Yasuo at the moment. Yone, I think, is kind of a worse version of Yasuo. He doesn't bring the Windwall, but he brings kind of a similar thing. Again, Aatrox, really nice matchup. Aurora matchup's fine. Camille matchup's really good for him. Same for Yasuo, actually. Yasuo is pretty good into Camille. If the Yasuo is proficient, of course. Otherwise, the Camille would win. Yone murders Gwen, Nasus, Cassante, wins into Ornn, loses into Poppy, loses into Renekton, loses into Rumble, wins into Smolder. TF's kind of hard for TF. So I would say like maybe he wins into TF, loses into this, loses into Vlad, and then Yasuo is the other win brother. I think it's Yasuo favored. I just don't think he's as good as Yasuo because he's not bringing that Windwall utility, and he's not stomping Varus top and Aurora top and other really potent picks. Okay, Zeri goes in B. She's like Smolder, but the spots to pick her are more niche. But on an individual power level, she's really, really powerful, and her flexibility is insane. Her ability to go mid or bot in pretty much any game means that you can pick a Zeri and block so many champions. Like, Gangplank cannot be picked into Zeri because then Zeri will just go top and Gangplank cannot play the game. Same for Alawi, same for like Mordekaiser. Zeri blocks a lot of champions just by being in the draft. It's kind of similar to Vayne as well. But the thing with Vayne is that Vayne can't go mid and bot every game. Zeri can literally go mid or bot every single game. So you don't even need to worry. Like, yeah, Zeri's crazy. Individual power in top, though, probably puts her at B. No, actually, I'm going to put her in A because of, like Smolder, the flexibility is just insane on this patch. Yorick, niche. His W is what makes him pickable sometimes. It can do a lot. It can cock block a lot of champions. Darius, Olaf, Ornn, Rumble, TF. These are all champions that can't deal with Yorick with points in W. Olaf, Darius, Garen, that sort of thing. You W them, they can't deal with it. You put points in it early, you do like 3 points Q into W max or something, and then finish maxing your Q, because the reason you're maxing W so early, you wouldn't do this in solo queue, but you're only picking Yorick for the W, because it's so good. So if you have a winning lane and the W has so much value, you could pick Yorick. Zac, I think, is A tier. This champ is still really broken in top lane. If you need a magic damage engage champ, he is your best pick, for sure. Zac is really, really powerful. And then finally, I think Zilean goes in C. There's some spots where you can pick Zilean and get a free lane, and then you just pick Zilean and get a free lane. And then, if he has good synergy with the other champs on his team, there you go. You've got Zilean in top lane, and it's pretty nice. Okay, let's just go through and make sure we've not missed anyone. No. I don't think I've missed anyone. Not anyone that I think is, like, worthy of being on the list anyway. Like, for example, if I would put them on just to put them in D tier anyway, it's not really, like Shaco, right? You could just put him in D tier, but why? Just leave him off the list. He's not played enough in solo queue in top lane to actually be called a top laner. Yeah, so I think I'm happy with this list. So that's my top lane tier list for patch 14.17. Look forward to seeing how it changes. That video will be a lot shorter, obviously, because I'll just be talking about the things that move. But we'll save the changes here. And then later on, I'll get into jungle, mid, bot, and support. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.